files dropped off. All right. So Khan says that he chose the ECG app because he finds it very practical and useful. And for the ECG app, going through the 5 stages of design, his first point was the empathize um, stage. And he says ECG understood that buying electricity was stressful for many people. You have to walk to a vending station sometimes far from your house. When you get there, you meet people, you meet long queue. Sometimes the network is down, or they tell you to go to another branch. Waste time and energy. Through research and observation, they realize customers are tired of this process. Awesome. So Khan has captured the problem that ECG had with their retail and how they interact with customers. So they found that uh, their business was affected by number one, the inconvenience of people physically being at their locations to buy from them. Number two, inconsistencies in the infrastructure related to buying of electricity. And three, where people waste time and energy to get to the facility and probably there's disappointment and they have to move to different uh, locations. So here the main problem was convenience and infrastructure. So they tried to understand the user's perspective. Then they defined the problem as inconvenience. People wanted a faster and easier way to buy prepaid electricity without leaving their homes. All right. Then ideate, they went through creating user personas. All right. After analyzing the problem and creating user personas. Okay, I think this stage, the user personas will have to go through the define stage. So usually we define the user personas here in the second stage, not the third stage. Right. Um, and they brainstormed different solutions. And they thought of using mobile technology since most people now have smartphones and mobile money. All right. So yes, this was one of the ideas they came up with in the ideation stage. Then prototyping, they came up with the ECG mobile app. I think the first prototyped with USSD, that's the hashtag, the hash star something something hash where you buy from either directly from your mobile money uh, account or from your from their specific USSD code or from your mobile money menu, going to the mobile money and selecting pay bills from that section. I think that's where they started the prototyping stage from before they moved full time to the app. Then testing, they tested with a few people. So yeah, they tested with the USSD and they found that it was effective. And so they launched the app on a larger scale. Yeah. All right. So yeah, the ECG app is a good example of design thinking because they understood the user's problem, found a simple solution, and made life easier for customers. All right. Awesome. That's a nice one, Can. Uh, you understood the problem well. All right. Then for Obed also took a look at the Momo fraud or the Momo awareness campaign.
Are you sure you're not screaming right to say this? Hmm? You can go on.
So, um, for the first stage of the design, he took us to the empathize. Who is the audience? The audience is everyday mobile money users. Okay, so trying to understand who the users are. And many of these users are often pressured by fraudsters using fear of false rewards. So the problem here is many MCL mobile money users are being frauded or they are falling victims to fraud. So the problem is how do we solve this issue? Or the question is how do you solve this problem of our users being alright. Then it says define what's the problem they trying what problem were they trying to solve? Right. The main problem is the high rate of financial loss caused by fraud and social engineering. So MTN aimed to help mobile money users recognize fraud and stop it before their accounts were compromised. Brilliant. So he has stated the problem in a single sentence or single phrase in a way to capture the essence of it. Brilliant. Then we have the ideation stage. The, the campaign uses clear and simple ideas to educate users. For example, the slogan Think, Stop, Think, Verify tells users what to do when they feel pressured. They also use simple symbols and strong color contrast to make warnings easy to notice and understand quickly. Alright. So I think he shared a video with me after reviewing his output to the class. So you take a look at the specific campaign he's referring to. Then for the prototype stage, visible design decisions. The designer has made a problem visible by using known phone calls, suspicious notifications, fake messages. This helps users instantly say, "Oh, I've seen this." This is relevant in the prototype stage because the ideas are turned into simple visuals that people can see and understand. Instead of explaining fraud with words, the design shows real situations helping users recognize scams easy. Another good point. So prototyping stage. I think here they rolled out a few videos online explaining the mechanisms fraudsters use to get people. Then for the testing stage, refining the experience. MTN likely tested a campaign by checking if fraud cases reduced. All right, so real-time data or monitoring data over time to see how the campaign has performed based on reports of fraud cases. Over time, the messages became more direct, telling users exactly what actions to take, such as ending suspicious calls or declining unknown approvals. This shows the campaign was improved based on user response. So, yeah, it's saying that the messages or the campaign messages was more direct instead of being somewhat ambiguous or suggestive. The message was more direct in stating uh, the message they wanted to convey. All right. So take a look at Obed's video quickly. Let me share my screen of this video. Mm, all right. Uh, all right. Let me. Okay. I hope you all can see my screen. If you can see my screen, give me a thumbs up. Okay. Thank you, Karen. Thank you. Okay. All right. Let's watch the video.
Your Momo wallet is secure, but fraudsters try to trick you every day. You may get calls pretending to be Momo or MTN, messages asking you to verify your account, or requests to approve transactions you didn't start. Fraudsters may create urgency or fear and may promise rewards or threaten account.
All right. So that was the video. I think it's a clipped video, so we didn't get to see the whole thing. But in essence, that's what the campaign was about, in creating awareness for the problem, and I think it did its job very well. And so the campaign was a success. All right. Okay. So now we'll take a look at Elizabeth. We'll take a look at Elizabeth's submission. Load up real quick. All right. So Elizabeth chose to highlight chocolate, 57 chocolate. It's a chocolate brand, I believe. And for the first stage of their design process or their design thinking, emphasize who is their audience. So she defined the audience as gift buyers, people in the diaspora, tourists, uh, and young people who love luxury African brands. Right. So trying to understand who their audience is and what the problem is. So you're defining what the problem is now. Ghana produces cocoa, but most premium chocolates in shops are foreign brands. Right. So here in the empathize stage, you can say these users are not getting authentic um, Ghanaian cocoa, right, or authentic Ghanaian chocolate. So the problem here is they want to experience authentic Ghanaian chocolate. So now you define the problem as Ghana produces cocoa, but most premium chocolates in shops are foreign brands. So now they are trying to create a brand that is premium chocolate, but it's from Ghana. So the question they might ask is, how can we make a high quality chocolate brand that competes with foreign luxury brand? So local competitor for a foreign brand. that serves these users. In the ideation stage, use clean and modern packaging uh, as is typical of luxury brands. Make beautiful or use bold, simple colors like black and gold. Make beautiful gift boxes, tell a strong made in Ghana story. Prototype what shows the tested ideas. They created different flavors. They improved their packaging over time. They released special editions. I think these were ways they rolled out their products in a way to capture their target market. Just how can we tell they tested it? Many young people buy it. It is used as a gift and it's growing in popularity. Right. So you can say they took feedback from their customers or their users in these persona, um, how people are buying it, how people relate to it on social media, especially uh, how much it's growing in popularity. He also shared a few images of what the brand looks like. So this is what 54, 57 chocolate looks like. This is what it looks like with the red packaging, homemade with love. Also emphasizing the people who value the Ghanaian authentic brand. We can see some cultural symbolism with the African mask on the chocolate brand or packaging. We can also see the same thing with the Dinka symbols on the chocolate itself. So you can see the Dinka symbol, Jiname, uh, the Unity brand, and what have you. You can also see the packaging here featuring some select African leaders and also with the flavors as well. I think these are not typical flavors you see in the foreign brands like the Bisa and the Moringa. So these are kind of attuned to the local taste, which is giving them also an edge in the market. So yes, it's a very good use of design thinking or a very good example of design thinking in use. All right, nice one, Elizabeth. Um, let's see. I think Jifa also shared hers as a video. Let me see if I can play it here quickly. So Jifa, you didn't provide a breakdown, so I'll play the video and then you give us a breakdown of your uh, what your process was about. All right. So this is the video Jifa shared. Can you guys hear the audio?
Yes, we can.
You can hear it.
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Okay. Just making sure. Thank you. think that's the end of the video. All right, Jafar, over to you.
Yes, hi.
Yeah.
So in this video, we have like a celebrity uh, who is the focus of the video, and
Yeah.
it's a Pepsi ad.
Hmm.
So in this video, there's a protest going on, and then before she was at a photo shoot doing her modeling thing. She saw a protest going on, and then she decided to join, and she gave the Pepsi to the police, and then that ended the whole protest or whatever it is that was going on. So this video received a lot of backlash in the sense that one, um, so let me begin from the first. Can I please get the design,
All right.
the idea?
Let me
And
share
the
that. All right. Uh, yeah.
So their problem, I would say, is maybe their sales are going down, so they are trying to boost their sales.
Okay.
So in the is this step two or the step three? They you see like beer ads usually when they do beer ads, they usually equate it with happy moments. Like maybe
Right.
there's a football going on, and then it unites people in that sense.
Hmm.
Where
Hmm.
have a football, watch, have a beer, watch football, and then there's union. I think they were trying to do this uh, in a way that is more meaningful, in the
Right.
sense that uh, I would take maybe world peace, like they're trying to bring peace or something. But it was done in a tone deaf manner, in the sense that even when you look at the protest, it doesn't even look like they're having a protest. It looks like it's a party that's going on.
True.
The the posters people were holding on, there were no meaningful writings on it. The celebrity that they used, Kendall Jenner, people don't even like her in the first place. So for her to even come in and then um, be the face of this, bringing peace to this, it was also bad. The interesting thing that I got from it was that when the backlash came, it was not Pepsi that got a handful of it. It was the celebrity Kendall
Right.
that got a handful of it.
Interesting.
So yes, that was why I even brought it up, because she had to come back out to make a video apologizing to the public about this ad that she made.
Wow.
But Pepsi only took it down. They didn't do anything else about it.
Right. I see. Interesting. So, in the five stages, which part do you think they fumbled the whole project, or what do you think the whole project failed from?
I would say it failed from the second step,
Hmm.
and then the idea it failed basically from the second step, because the first step, uh, they know their problem, they know what they are trying to achieve. But from the second step through to the fifth step, I don't know what went wrong. And also, there should be two, because the person that was used is a celebrity. She has her own team that would go through whatever it is that she was going to stand for. How did they get it wrong from her team and also Pepsi's team? So I also even have a question regarding the fact that these steps, are they like, is there like an authority behind it, in the sense that are they controlled? I don't know if you
Uh,
understand my question.
yeah, like, is it like a general consensus that everyone has agreed on?
Yes. So do you, because it looks like even in this one, there were two different bodies, two different teams, and they still couldn't come together to make sense of it.
Right. Yeah.
So is it
So,
that anybody can just get up and do anything? And then who brought up these five tests, these five steps, and then nobody follows through with them?
all right, great question. So these steps are not an international. It's not something that is internationally recognized. Like you would say, the doctors have their Hippocratic oath where everyone has swear to go by these principles. No, it's not something like that. These steps was created by someone. Let me see if I can find his name. It was created by someone, and the whole concept of this is through research. He's a very experienced designer, but through research and experience, he found that this is the best way to approach a problem, and it's not even related to um, just design. It's something that stretches to different industries. So you can say you can take architecture, oil and gas, whatever industry, as long as people are related and you are designing for people, these steps are relevant. Okay, his name is Herbert Simmons. Herbert Simmons, and I think he coined it in 1969. Yeah, so he is the one who came up with these five steps for design thinking. Some other organizations have the their different ways of going about to design thinking, but ultimately it goes around the same thing: understanding the problem, understanding the people, coming up with solution, taking feedback, reiterating when necessary. It all goes around the same thing, right? So even though it's not something that uh, it's a process that's strictly followed by everyone. Every other process that you would come across, it's a derivative of this. There's another one called a diamond. Uh, Let me see if I can find what that looks like. Diamond design thinking process. The double diamond. Yeah, double diamond. Let me share my screen. Okay, yeah, I have it here. So this is what you call the double diamond uh, design process. So discover, define, develop, and deliver. It's the same principle or the same derivative of the first process that I showed you. So discover, you're discovering the problem. So the reason why it diverges is because or discover, you're exploring a lot of different possibilities. So it's like you're opening up your mind or your umbrella to different perspectives, different aspects. You are taking in different information from everywhere, and then you find you are trying to squeeze everything down to a singular essence. So all this information I'm having, what is the thing that cuts across everything? What's the singular truth in all that I've found out? So you go through the define stage, then you develop. When you're developing, you're expanding again. You're checking out different possibilities of ways to solve a problem. You are taking a look at different solutions, different possible solutions, different things, expanding your horizons, thinking outside the box. That's your develop. Then you go back to your deliver, where you are converging again to create a singular solution to the problem. So this is called a double diamond for me process. It's all a derivative of there's other different ones that people come up with, but essentially all of them come back to uh, the five main thing that Herbert Simmons coined. So essentially, it's all about uh, understanding the users, understanding the problem, exploring a vast variety of solutions, uh, testing and taking feedback and implementing the feedback that you take. Right. Sometimes some design, I wouldn't say design uh, specifically, but sometimes some people skip this process because they think that, oh, my idea is good because of politics, like I mentioned before in the Jaguar ad, some kind of politics or some kind of power play or some kind of agenda they want to push. They try to skip some steps and just present their ideas as they are, and they ultimately fail in the uh, testing stage, right? Or when they implement their solutions. So sometimes some people tend to skip for various solutions, but ultimately the results is what shows those who skip and those who stuck by the process uh, at the end of the day. And also, I think it's very important to note that you don't have to stick too long with the process. I think with designers, we are very prone to romanticizing the process more than the outcome, right? So you take a long time on the process, and at the end of the day, the outcome is not really solving the problem, right? So you still need to go by the process, but don't romanticize it too much or don't linger too long and be attached too much to the process, right? At the end of the day, it's the solutions that matter. You're trying to solve a problem, not uh, create or not to produce the process as your product. Right? Once we start exploring design, you would understand in depth of what romanticizing the process feels like and what prioritizing the solution over that also looks like. All right. Okay. So thank you for your question, Jafar. Very insightful. Uh, all right. So thank you everyone for submitting your assignments. I think the only one missing here is GDL. So for today's lesson, we'll take a look at typography. So today is a little part. This lesson was supposed to be like a two-session lesson, but I want you guys to start practicing with Figma next week, next Thursday. So we'll have to go through this quickly, and then we have time to explore that on Thursday. All right. So today we'll be taking a look at typography. We see what typography means, what it's about. Uh, we take a look at anatomy of type, type pairing, type hierarchy, and anything in between. So typography, what is typography? We say typography is the design or selection of letter forms to be organized into words and sentences, to be disposed in blocks of type as printing displayed upon a page, including typeface selection, font size, line length, and spacing to make written language legible, readable, and visually appealing. What this is saying is anything related to text on a page, either printed or digital, can be classified as typography. So the selection of a type is typography, designing a typeface is typography, how it's arranged on a page is also typography, um, the point size. You're going to learn about point size, line length, spacing, all these. We'll go through them uh, very well. So every letter form is anything that is typed, right? So it can be a letter, it can be a whole sentence, it can be a whole text, it can be just a word. As long as it's made up of letters, you can call it a letter form, right? So every letter form is made up of specific parts. Understanding these parts help designers make precise decisions and communicate clearly with other designers or other users. So take a look at anatomy of a type. Okay, just repeat it. So these types, you can take a look at this diagram here. So the first term we would look at is baseline. Baseline. So the baseline is the invisible line all letters sit on. So take a look at this diagram here. This line that you see here, it seems all the letters seem to be resting on this line. Not all of them, some of them don't sit on this line, but most of the letters have a certain line they seem to be resting on. And that's what you call the baseline of your type. You can see that here in every text that you come across, there's a baseline, there's a horizontal line here that runs not to this line but an invisible line. You can imagine that line runs along these letters here. That's what you call the baseline. Then you have the x height. The x height is the height of lowercase letters. The height of lowercase letters. You can see that demonstrated here. So from the baseline to the top of the lowercase letters. So you take this E for example, the length from this baseline to this top here we call the x height. So that's the height of the lowercase letters, right? Then we have the ascender, part of a letter that rises above the x height, ascender. So anything that rises above the x height of a typeface we call the ascender. A typical example is a B, D, H, K, F, right? Type like that, letters like that can be categorized as having an ascender. So you see the F here, it starts from the baseline to the X height, and then it has an ascender that rises above the X height. So even though this is a lowercase letter, it's not confined to the X height, right? Because in the definition of X height, it says height of lowercase letters. This F is a lowercase letter, but it's not confined to the base height or to the X height because it has an ascender. So characters with ascenders and descenders are not restricted to the X height. And descender is the opposite of the ascender. So part that drops below the X height we call the descender. A typical example is the G, P, Y, and Q. Here we can see the example used here is the Y and P. They have a descender descending below the X height, right? Descender with a P, descender with a Y. We can see descender with a G here as well. If you draw a invisible line through these words here or under these words here, you can see the P, the stem of the P descends. The G also has a descender as well. So this part of the type we call the descender. Then there is serif. Serif is, we'll take a look at serif and sans serif specifically so you guys would know the difference. But for now, serif is this point here you see on this type. You see some types have some type of points and the edges. You can see them on this part as well, 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 on this part as well. Uh, on the S as well, you can see this kind of pointy part we call a serif. Then we have the counter. Uh, counter is a space, enclosed space inside letters like the O, E, and P. So the space between this E here, the space between this P here, and the space between this O here, we call the counter. Then we have kerning. Kerning is a space adjustment between two specific characters. So these three terms, I have a diagram to show you how it looks like. And we also have the leading, which is vertical space between lines of text. Then we have the tracking, uniform spacing across a range of characters. So for the kerning, tracking, and leading, this is what it looks like in practice, right? Kerning is a space between individual letter pairs. So the space between this R and the N we call kerning. So in typography, the space between different letters or the space between the letters are usually different, depending on the type of font you are using. The space between this L and E is different from the space between this E and A. It's different from the space between this D and I. It's different from the space between this I and N. So the space between these two specific characters we would call the kernel. Then the tracking is the general space in between all the characters at once. So in Adobe Photoshop or Figma, you have the option to adjust the spacing between everything all at once. So let's say you want to, let me show an example here. Let's say you have this character here. Let's make it visible, white and visible. Yeah. You have the option here to change the space between the whole thing, right? I can change the space between everything. I can make it close. I can make it very wide. I can play around with this, right? And then I can come here and change the specific space in between these characters. This we call kerning, right? This you can say I'm kerning the characters or I'm kerning the type, right? So that's the difference between uh, kerning and tracking. Kerning is when you're changing the space between the specific two characters, and tracking is when you're changing the space between the entire word or sentence or whatever it is. Then leading is just the space between the different lines of text. So this space between this leading and this leading we would call uh, the leading. So you try to find trying to change. Can you guys hear me now? Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right. My internet seems to be having a rough time today. All right. So yes, I think you are here. So that's the different parts of or the anatomy of a type. So type classifications. There are different types of types, I would say, or different types of. I don't say font because font is something else. We'll look at why font is different from type. But there are different types of types. We'll take a look at serif, as you heard me mention serif earlier. Sans serif, slab serif, handwritten, display or decorative, monospace. We'll take a look at all these to see what they are about. So we'll take a look at this to start with. This we would consider sans serif. Why? Because it doesn't have this serif attached to it, right? So when you have this serif here, we call serif. When we don't have a serif here, we call it sans serif. Sans is a French word. I think it means without. So this basically means without serif, and this one means with serif or serif. So we have this here as serif, then we have here sans serif. Then we have this as script. Script is usually um, typefaces that are designed to look like someone had written it or someone had designed it with their hands. So this looks like someone intentionally drew this or this with a calligraphy pen like this. So they are designed to look like things that people hand wrote or handwritten. So that's what we call script or handwritten type. Then we have the slab serif. Slab serif is just like the serif, but the serif that this one has is usually a slab. You see how this one is curved nicely on the edges, but this one is just like a straight line. That's what we call the sans serif or the slab serif. Sorry. Then we have the black letter. Black letter is like uh, an old way of lettering where they try to make it look very decorative, like a Gothic old English type of writing. We would call it black letter or Gothic style. Then we have the monospace. Monospace is when the so monospace, they are usually, most often, it's sans serif that is being used, but it's used in a more interesting way or in a more static way, I would say. So every single letter has the same width. Let me show you an example of what I mean. Every single letter has the same width. So let's take mono. Let me find a mono typeface here. Yes. Okay. Yes, we can take a look at this. Yeah. So what I mean by every single type has the same width is, we can take this for example, and we can sort of measure how long this text is. If we measure this same thing here, it's the same thing, right? It's the same width. Same thing here. You can measure it. It's the same width. Same thing here. It's the same width. This is what we call mono spacing or monotype spacing. Right? It's the same all across every character. Sometimes there's variations, minor variations, but essentially it's the same spacing. We can take a look at another non-monotype phase. So you see how different they are. So you can take a look at absence. Let's try to measure how big it is. Alright, you can see this is the standard size of it. But when we measure this with this, we see that the H is wider than the E. We can also look at the A. It's also wider than the A. It's wider than the D. It's definitely wider than the I. Wider than the N. Almost the same as the G. Still wider than the G. So this typeface would call sans serif. and the other one would call the mono space or monotypeface. So that's the difference between sans serif and monospace font or mono uh, font. Then we have the decorative style or decorative font. So decorative can sometimes be known as uh, display font. Yes, sometimes known as display font, and it's usually decorative in nature. It's usually used in just one sentence or headline or uh, like a one-off use. You don't use display font as text for your paragraph or a phrase. You use the text as for a headline or just something major in your design. Um, let's take a look at a few examples as well. So display type, let me clear all these lines. I hope you guys are following.
Yes.
All right. If you have any questions, you can uh, let me know. All right. Let's take a look at the decorative type. So yes, this is an example of a decorative typeface. Take another look at an example, and then I'll show you why we don't use this another decorative example. Let's find another one, the last one. Very decorative. Jifa, you have a question?
Yes, I wanted to ask, I don't know if I missed it. You said the difference between the sans serif and the serif is the little dashes underneath the A's.
Yes. Not specifically with the A's, but every single character you will see has some sort of decoration on the end of it. So this one you can see has a line protruding out of it with the top curve. Same with this part, same with this part, same with this part, same with this part, same with this, same with this. So the ending of the terminals of it, you would see have some sort of decorations or some sort of protrusions around those parts. Anytime there's nothing like this is a typical sans serif font. Anytime there's no decorations around the end of the text, you can call it um, sans serif, right?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So take a look at this few examples of heading of a decorative type. Now let me try to copy this text here, and then you would see why I say we don't use this for body text. All right, so let's shift this here. So this is asset TM. All right, so this is the same font as this. What do you notice immediately with this?
The letters are all together. I can't really see. It's not very legible.
Yes, exactly. So the main issue with this is legibility. This text is, or this type is designed to be used in a larger font. It's not designed to be used in this font size. It's designed to be used in a larger font size. So once you break that rule and you use it as a body type or for a paragraph or something like this, immediately loses legibility because that is not what it's designed for. You take another look at using it with this font. What was this? Bagel
A
Fatwa.
question, please. What type is this?
This one specifically was acid TM, and this one is Bagel Fatwa. Bagel. When you use it
Um,
here the legibility is a little better, but still not ideal. Same with this. Once I change it, it will be the same issue. So the main issue with um, display or decorative titles, they are meant for larger uh, users. So all these typefaces that I showed you, all of them have their specific use cases where you can use them, right? You can use monospace typeface where you need serif typeface, right? So we'll go through the specific use cases of where you need uh, certain typefaces, right? All right. Uh, all right. So for serif typefaces, you would find them or you would use them in classic trustworthy editorial uses. So this font, because it's very old or the serif typeface is very old, is usually associated with things that you want to portray as classic, trustworthy. You'll find a lot of books that print with uh, serif typefaces. Uh, Things that you want to seem very mature, luxury brands. You see a lot of luxury brands using um, serif typefaces. Best for print, long body text, and for luxury brands, as mentioned. So this is the use case for serif typefaces. There's some exceptions or some serif typefaces that have been designed for different use cases, but most often you will find serif typefaces used in this context. Then for sans serif, you are using it in a context for something that is modern, clean, minimal, digital, for tech. Almost everything that's digital is mostly designed with sans serif typeface. For your phone, your computer, uh, almost everything that's digital is done with a sans serif typeface. Right. So for digital tech approachable brands, you'll find sans serif typeface there. Then we have the slab serif, like I mentioned, similar to the serif, but it has a slab as the serif. Let me show you the classic, another example of slab serif. Uh, Yes, this is an example of slab serif. Let me put an example of a serif. Yeah, this is slab serif. Yes. So this is slab serif. This is serif. See this one, the serifs are slabs, or you can call them rectangles. But this one, the serifs are more like pointed ends, right? So you keep that in mind when you're trying to differentiate slab serif from actual serifs. So for slab serif, they are used in bold context, strong when you want the design to seem strong. Retro is more like uh, nostalgia design. So retro, you can say 2000 retro, uh, 1969, 80s, or whatever age you want to uh, target, or whatever nostalgia you want to target, right? So you want to target probably an old time, not too ancient, where you would need the serif, but it's old, but it's not too old. Then you can go for the slab serif. So for posters, rugged brands that want to seem like hip or retro stuff like that, you can use a slab serif. Then for script, handwritten, you want because it's handwritten, it seems very someone has spent a lot of time designing that, so it seems very personal, elegant, creative, accents, uh, accents only, never body text. So when you're using this, you don't use it as a body text like I showed you before with the display type. You can use it as a accent. Accent is something you use to accentuate the design, right? Like I use this orange here to highlight the heading of each point. You can see that that's the accent in the design, right? So accent is something that is not much in the design, but it elevates the design. So you can use script as accents, but don't use it as body. There are use cases where you can use as body text, but it would have to be very you have to use it very carefully, right? You have to be very intentional. Yeah. Then for display or decorative, it's expressive, distinctive, titles and logos only, short text best. So you use it for titles, mostly use the logos as well. For the examples I showed you earlier. It's very expressive. That's why it's used in logos. They have character. When I say a type has a character, it means you can, when you look at it, you are able to associate a certain feeling to it. When you look at it, it's able to convey something unique uh, to you as on as a user or as a someone interacting with the design, right? So let's take a look at uh, let's say you will always be mine. All right, all right. Let's believe this. So we are going to experiment with type, and we'll see what I mean by type having a personality. Take a look at. This is a classic script type, and then we change this one to something else. Let me find something. Trying to find something very sinister. Yes, yes. All right. So we take a design like this. Let's give it red. Yes. Take this and give it the same color. Right. So quickly we'll go through this. All right. So guys, look at these two designs and tell me what you think about each of them. So I think Elizabeth can start us off. When you see this design or this type, and when you look at this design, what feelings would you associate with this, and what feelings would you associate with this? Or imagine someone sent you a letter, and this is the text that was on it, and another one send you this, or receive another letter with this type of support. Hypothetically, right? What feelings would you associate with this, and what feelings would you associate with this? All right, Elizabeth.
Think the first one. Um, the first one has a bold character,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's too serious. The second one, the stylish font, gives it like a playful kind of vibe.
Right. Okay, that's a
Um,
good point. All right.
mm.
Uh, Anne, what's your opinion?
Um, use this. Um, I think what is the name? Um, the first one gives me Halloween vibes. like playful, scary, like funny vibes. And the second one, I think it gives what it actually like laugh, gives a laugh feeling. That's what
Okay.
I see.
All right. All right. Good point. All right. Uh, Ujifa.
Okay, so the first one gives the first one I'll say is more legible than the second one, and it
Mm,
also gives like a child that's learning to write. The second one has more of a luxury feel to it than the first one.
right.
But if it's a lot, it will be harder to read than the first one.
Right. Okay. Okay. All right. Obed, what do you think?
Yeah, I also agree with Han. The first one also gives like a playful vibe, and if it looks like, I mean, if you are writing this to someone, you will always be mine in this context. The reader might not necessarily take it like serious, but the second one gives the romantic vibe. Yeah, so I also agree with that
All
context.
right. Brilliant. Exactly. So yes. So the first one is a little playful. It's not very serious. It seems very disjointed. Some of the characters are not connected. So it gives you like a playful uh, feeling. It doesn't feel very serious. It's just something like a uh, unserious message. But for the second one, it feels personal. It feels romantic. It feels something someone who actually cares about you sent this to you. So this is the thing I was talking about with the use cases for type and how every type has its own personality or its own its own personality or characteristics that they invoke in their uh, the users or whoever interacts with the brand, right? So let's quickly move on to typography, type parents. So usually type you would pair type with or one type with another to balance the design out or to make it look more interesting. So when you're pairing type, like this example we looked at in the first lesson, we'll look at all the things that went wrong here, right? With type pairing. Why this one was not supposed to be paired between this, why this was different, why it doesn't work, right? So we look at all those rules with type pairing, right? So when you are pairing type, consistency is key. You can pair a serif with a sans serif type. You can pair you can pair a slab serif with probably a monospace serif, right? The main thing is they should be different enough that you can notice that this typeface is different from this. So one thing is contrast, right? So maximum two fonts per design, three only with strong reason. Like I told you guys, maximum two, don't go beyond that unless you really have to, right? Assign rows, one for headline, one for body. So you you use one for body, one for headline. It has to balance out. Each typeface has to have a specific role that is playing in the design. It doesn't just have to be put in a design haphazardly. Right? Never pair two fonts with the same classification. So probably you have uh, this is sans serif, then you have another sans serif here. You can do that, but it's not. Uh, it would have been better if you use the same typeface for the whole thing. If the same thing is the same type of font you're using here in the heading and the same type you're using in the body. If you want to use the same type of or the same classification of type, it's just best to use the same typeface, right? So if you're using this example, I use Playfair display for the heading and Lato for the body. So if I want to use sans serif for the body, I can just use the same thing Lato for the body, right? So if you're pairing, they have to be different enough that it's interesting to look at. So mood must match. Playful scripts don't pair with sharp corporate sans serif. So the whole vibe of the design must match. You can't use something that is very playful and something that is very serious in the same design. Unless that's what you're going for, that's a specific messaging of your design. If that's not that, then it's not advised to do that. So these are some examples of typefaces that are paired correctly. The heading I use Playfair display, and the body I used Lato here. Here I use Oswald, which is a uh, sans serif typeface. Here I used Source Sans Pro. So here you see that even though these two are sans serif typefaces, there's enough contrast that they are different. Here has this one has a high or it has a higher weight or font weight. I think it's bold or semi bold, and this one is regular, right? So the one thing you have to know is there has to be a lot of contrast in the design. Then here you have space grotesque with inter. Then you have Montserrat with I don't think that's Montserrat. I think this is Meriwether. Yes, there was a mistake here. Right. So that's that for type pairing. Then we have type hierarchy. Type hierarchy is someone has a question. Jifa, go ahead.
Yes. Please, can you take the last two again? I didn't quite get it.
Oh, okay.
Um,
The last two parents, this
yes.
and this. Okay, so
No, as
this
in the
one is
never pair two fonts and the mode must match.
oh, okay. All right. So when you're pairing typefaces, right? The first thing you have to know is contrast. This heading has to be significantly different from how this one looks, right? So in this example, you can see that uh, this G here is more like it has 90 degrees turns. It's not curved as in this G that you would see here. So here you can say this typeface has contrast with this, and even the weight of it is different. So this is bold and this is light, right? So let's take a different let me add something like y m y q. So you see in these characters, you see that in all the terminals of it, there's some sort of 90-degree turns. It doesn't have perfect curves with the descenders and ascenders, right? The F also has this 90-degree turns, which is not present in this body copy, right? So it's different enough that it pairs well because there's contrast in this design, right? Same here, this is a slab serif and this is a sans serif type. And I was saying that in this example, even though this one is a serif type and this is also even though both are sans serif type, they are they are used different enough that you can see that you can see a difference uh, in the design. This one has semi bold, Oswald is set on semi bold, and this one is set on light, right? So even though they are the same typefaces here, or the same class of typefaces here, they are they have different weights, and that differentiates them. And with this one, it's much taller, right? When you see this, for example, comparing this to this one has a wider or it's much taller than this. This one seems to be more balanced. This one seems to be more taller, right? And that is different from this. This one seems to be more balanced in the weight of it. It's not stretched horizontally or vertically, right? So that also introduces a sense of contrast in this type pairing. So one thing you should know is that they should be different enough that they are distinguishable, right? They should be distinguishable. You can't use the same thing here like this here as you had it. No, you can't do something like this. They have to be different enough. Even if you're using the same type classification or the same typeface like this one, you can increase the typeface like this and increase the font weight like this, and then you have a good pairing here. So even though this is the same type classification and the same type, it looks different or it looks nice because there's contrast in the design, right? So we'll look at typographic typographic hierarchy. If are you okay?
Yes. So the it has to be different, but not so much,
Uh, yes.
because the last one is saying it shouldn't. The contrast shouldn't be so much.
So contrast in themes or contrast in uh, the mood. So let's say you have like a serious. Let's say this one is this one. This one seems very serious, and then you take a typeface like let me find a goofy typeface. You take a typeface like this for your design, right? This is not matching the mood of this. So even though there's contrast, there's different type classifications. The mood of this one is giving something scary or something very playful, and this one is giving something serious, right? Unless that's the vibe you're going for after I treat, unless that is the vibe you're going for, that's the main messaging of your design, you don't do this. So like you are doing a presentation for work or something, and then you do this. This is wrong, right? You are not going for something playful, so you shouldn't choose a typeface that doesn't match the mood of your uh, of the use case, right? So the mood of each typeface must match. So let's say we change this one to something a little more playful. Let's find something playful. Yeah, something like this one. We can reduce the size a bit to probably 4 or 5. So it's okay. So this one is not great, but the type it sort of matches the vibe a little bit because they seem to be doing something playful. Let me change this one to something a little more playful. Yes, this is a good example of that, right? So this is giving a playful vibe. This is also giving a playful vibe, right? So as long as they match, we can say that it's a good type pairing, right? So the vibe of it must match, right? I hope that's okay for you now.
Yes, yes, thank you.
All right. Anyone else has a question? Obed, Elizabeth, Jafar, Khan. Are you guys okay?
Please,
Yes,
I
please.
wanted to ask, you see, like newspapers,
Yeah.
they will usually write the first letter with some display type thing, and then the rest of it is serious.
Yes. Right. So that's a good example of type pairing. So
But does that not like, is the contrast not very big? Because usually the very first letter is decorative of some sort, and then the rest of it is like just serious vibes.
yes, but it's I've not seen a newspaper that is obnoxiously decorative. It has to be decorative in a way that even though it's big, it still gives a serious vibe. I don't know which newspaper I'm talking about, but for the ones I've seen, usually the headline is a sans serif typeface paired with a serif body text or copy, right? So it doesn't have to be too decorative, right? It has to be something that makes sense. So anytime you see uh, or you want to type pair, you can come back to uh, this 5 rules, right? Contrast, it has to be different enough. Maximum of two, don't go beyond that. Assign roles, one for the heading, one for the body, or we'll take a look at other rules of type. We'll look at pairing fonts or not pairing fonts from the same classification. Then we look at mode match, right? So all these things must be satisfied, but they can be broken, like the design principles talked about earlier. They can be broken, but they have to be broken with a purpose. There has to be a purpose in breaking the rules. All right. I see that we have a new member in our class, uh, Manwisi. Thanks for joining us. Uh, Hopefully, you're not too confused. So, this lesson we are going through typography, and at the moment, we are exploring type pairings and type hierarchy. Right. So, we went through this. I'll share this material on our group, and you should have access to that. I think Richard should share the link of our page with you if you're interested, and then you can follow along. with the materials. Then we have type hierarchy. So type hierarchy is the various roles you have for type. So here it mentioned assign roles to your type. So there's heading, there's secondary, there's tertiary, and there's supporting. And each of these play a specific role in the design. So heading is the main text, the largest and the boldest and most contrasting. Then secondary is usually a subtitle, sometimes below the heading, and slightly smaller, different weight or color. Then we have the tertiary, which is smallest, lightest, focused on readability. So in this, uh, we'll take a look at a different or a real flyer or real design. Then we identify these four roles that the type will be playing. Then we have supporting, which also can be known as captions, smallest, often italicized or muted, right? So just take a look at design we looked at in the first, which design we look at. Okay, let's look at this design right here. So this one we would call the heading or the main type. Then we have this as the subheading or the subtitle. Then we have this as the third. Okay, this two can be assigned subtitle because they have the same. Uh, the difference between this type and this type is not too different or it's not too great. Even though this has a more visual weight than this, we can still assign them the same rule in the design. And we can say this one is classified as the body text, right? Which is the tertiary text. We can see the same here. This is the heading. This is the secondary, or this is the subtitle. This can also be a subtitle here. Then we have the secondary type here as well. And this one has a more contrasting rules. So in every design you do, you don't need to have all four different. There's more than four in some cases, but you don't usually need all these four rules in your design. So in this design, they have just two rules. They have the heading and they have the tertiary, right? The heading is used with a sometimes introvert, then it might be as the subtext or the body copy, right? Some designs like this have just uh, the subtitle or the heading, sorry, subtitle. Some designs just have the main text. This design, for example, we can see has the body copy row alone, right? So you don't necessarily have to have all these rows present in your design to for it to be classified as a good design, right? And also, what makes this possible or what makes this look nice is you are not just selecting this based on vibes or based on how they look, or you just pick a type like this and then you start changing the font. Let's say this is your base font, You start changing it based on vibes alone. You say, oh, this one looks nice, so you select it, and you say, oh, this one, let me just pick this because this one looks nice, and then you do something like this. No, this is not how you do it, right? This is the wrong way to go about it. So there's various ways of scaling your time. There's one that we call the golden ratio. The golden ratio. There's another one called uh, there's a lot of them. Let me see if I can find the official names. Uh, Type scaling ratios. Right. So there's let me see if I can copy this here. Right. All right. Wow. It looks like it didn't copy properly. Let me just share my screen of what I'm looking at. Yes, there's also the Fibonacci. Yes, that's a golden ratio. All right, so there's minor second, there's major second, there's minor third, major third, perfect fourth, augmented fourth, perfect fifth, and a golden ratio. So what these are essentially are numbers that you multiply your text with. So let's take an example of this and we'll take a look at we'll use the minor second, right? The minor second is 1.067. 1.067. So if you are going by the 1.067, if you are going by this minor third ratio, what you do is you take this, you take a type, then you multiply it by 1.067, right? Then you have your new type size. So let's duplicate this, multiply it by 1.067. You have your larger type. You have this, you multiply by 1.67. As you continue going forward, you notice that they start to scale proportionally. Right? And each uh, ratio has its own, because the numbers are different. You see the difference between this one is very small. The difference is very, very small, right? Sometimes when you scale it like this, you can choose to skip. Let's say this one they are too close, so you can say you don't want this. So you pick this, and let's say this one is too close, and you pick this. So you can use this as your design. Even though you have skipped a few steps, it's the same ratio, right? We take a look at another ratio again. Uh, we take a look at the golden ratio with the Fibonacci 1.618. So we do 1.618. Let's see if I've got that correctly. All right, so 1.618. So we start with our base type. Let's duplicate it. 1.618. We have something different, something much larger. We duplicate it again. We multiply it by 1.618. You see, because it's a larger number, the difference between each scaling is different. So it's more dramatic or it's more contrasting. So there are different ratios that you can scale your type by, where you can arrive at a scaling that makes sense to you. Right. So this one I use the golden ratio.